If there was a fire in your facility, would you know that your fire doors are going to do their job? So fire doors are a critical component to fire containment. They're going to slow the spread of fire, but they're only going to do that if they're working properly. So if we've got a damaged or non-compliant fire door, then it's going to fail, and it's going to potentially put the lives of the occupants at risk as well as the property at risk. Now, NFPA 80 is the standard that covers fire doors, and the most common type of fire door that we're going to have is going to be swinging type fire doors with builder's hardware. So I want to go through real quick, and we'll talk about some of the inspection items on fire doors. So if you look below, we've got in Chapter 5 covers inspection, testing, and maintenance. So 5235 2 down below here is all the inspection items. We'll cover a couple of them really quick. So first we're going to make sure the fire doors labels are visible and legible. So we need to have a listed and labeled fire door and fire door assembly. We want to make sure there's no breaks on the surface of the door or the frame, no damage. We want to make sure that if there's any vision lights or any of that, that's all secure and not broken. Now we want to make sure that all the hinges and components are all not damaged and look to be in working order. Make sure there's no parts that are missing or broken. And then we're going to also want to make sure we check the clearances. So if we look here at 484, first, we want to make sure our clearance at the bottom of the door is no more than 3/4 of an inch. Now, it's typical for most fire doors. Now, if there's a threshold under there, we're going to have to look at the listing of that threshold or the manufacturer's instructions to see what that clearance needs to be. But typically, we're looking at that 3/4 of an inch at the bottom. So we want to test that. And then if we look at 6317 here, we want to look at the clearance around the outside of the door to the frame, make sure that it's not too open, and also make sure it's not too tight. So based on the type of door, we're going to have different types of clearances. But for example, if we're looking at a hollow metal door, we want to make sure that opening is 1/8 of an inch plus or minus a 1/16 of an inch. So we're going from a 1/16 of an inch all the way up to 3/16 of an inch. So we want to make sure we're within that. Based on the type of door, that might change a little bit, but that's kind of your most common type of door that you're looking at. And then most importantly, at the end, we want to make sure we fully functional test that door. So we're going to open the door all the way. All fire doors need to be self-closing or automatic closing. So we're going to open it up all the way, and we're going to make sure it shuts and latches. We're going to test it from different percentages opening and make sure that fire door is going to close and latch. And we also want to make sure we test that if it's an automatic closing door, whether it's held open automatically by the fire alarm with a magnet, or if it's got an automatic closer, we want to make sure we're testing that. So loss of power, fire alarm, we want to make sure that door is going to close and latch. And then also we want to make sure that any modifications that have been performed to the fire door are done properly. So whether they meet the requirements in NFPA 80 for site preparation, or potentially looking at going the field modification route, looking at the going back to the listing agency and asking them if you can make this change to a fire door. But mostly, we're looking to make sure the fire door's not changed or damaged. And then also signage requirements. The general requirement here is no more than 5% of the door is covered in signage, and no signs on any glazing of a door. So that's kind of the general requirements for when we're looking at doing an inspection on a fire door. Now, how often do we need to do this inspection? So if we scroll down here to 524, so we look below 524, periodic inspections and testing need to be performed not less than annually. So I need to be doing an annual fire door inspection. Now, so make sure you're getting that done on your facility, because fire doors are always there. They're passive protection, so which means we want to make sure that they're always there and they're always going to be able to perform their job. Now, are you doing fire door inspections in your facility? Are you having someone come in and do those inspections? I'm interested to hear below. What's one of the biggest failures you've seen or biggest deficiencies you've seen on a fire door while you're doing an inspection?